Hey everybody, it's Kroger Nazi here, coming at you with another gameplay commentary. This commentary is not going to be about the gameplay. It's going to be about the recent worldly troubles and internet troubles we have. This one is going to be about the school shooting in Connecticut. The lunatic who broke into the elementary school and shot several faculty members and students, one of which was his mother, who was the kindergarten teacher at the school. I want to say this first and foremost, it's a tragic and horrible event, and, my condolences go out to the families of the victims and survivors. But this is going to be talking about the possible ramifications behind the incident. The strictening of gun laws and the ramped up security at schools. And on the topic of the gun laws, changing gun laws is not, I don't feel, is going to help anything. Regardless of access to weapons, incidents like this are going to happen. This guy has a history of mental illness, and I guarantee he is not legally able to have firearms. So he obtained them through other means. Just as many people who are also not allowed to have firearms for many reasons, or even regular individuals who can have firearms, they obtain them privately, whether that be on a black market or from a private individual. You don't have to buy guns at gun shops. And even if we made it a law where you had to buy them at a gun shop, individual sales are still going to occur. Look at drugs. Drugs are illegal. Drugs are sold every day. The availability of drugs hasn't changed. Meth, for an example, is rapid in the country, and meth is completely illegal. And many of the ingredients in order to get meth are restricted, either by age or quantity, or somehow they're restricted to somewhat coerce the fact that meth is being made. It doesn't work. These things are going to continue to occur. If we could stop all the bad things from happening in the world, it'd be a utopia, and we do not live in a utopian society. It's just, we can't be changing society and the Constitution and how we live because of isolated incidents. No matter how tragic the incident may be, we cannot change society as a whole and the country as a whole because of isolated incidents. Strictening gun laws are, I guarantee whether he was using an assault rifle or a .22 pistol, he could have done the same amount of damage just as quickly. You're talking about a defenseless target. You're not talking about, firepower for firepower. You're talking about a lunatic targeting children, women and children. There is, regardless of what weapon it was, he could have done the same amount of damage. And this happens every time something horrible happens, a shooting or whatever. Like, look at Columbine. Columbine shooting, they talked about strictening gun laws, and they blamed everybody but the shooters in that. Like, it was the parents, how do they have access to firearms? And then they blame the internet because, they communicated using the internet. They blame Dungeons and Dragons because they were using Dungeons and Dragons chat rooms and forums to talk about and plan said shooting. It's like, you gotta put blame where the blame is due. And it wasn't the gun who killed those people. It was the man behind the gun. It's the fact that he wasn't supposed to have guns. I guarantee that's the fact. He had them anyway. And regardless if guns were illegal or not, if he had the plan of killing somebody, he was going to. He was going to obtain the weapon of his choice, however, and use it. Unless society as a whole thinks we need to be more like many European countries and get rid of guns completely, then it's not going to happen. That's the simple fact. We're not going to be able to change the Constitution of the United States because of isolated incidents. It's a horrible thing, but it can't be changed because of one incident. And talk about ramping up security at schools, you can't just, are we honestly expected to have armed guards at every entrance of schools, private and public? Whether it be private companies or military or local authorities, it can't be done. And if it's done, it's ridiculous. Like, I personally don't want to live in a society where, me or my children or whatever have to go to a school, to, a place of learning and be guarded by, weapons and, guards standing outside the buildings. I personally know. And think about it as a parent, you go to pick up little Timmy from school early one day. You have to be frisked, and make sure you're not carrying a weapon or anything before you can go and pick up your kid. I mean, that's a little extreme for, one incident. I mean, yes, these incidents happen, several times a decade, but they're still isolated incidents. There are thousands of schools every year that have, little to no violence at all in them. We don't need to change every school. We don't need to drastically change anything. I don't see it having any real outcome effect upon the situation. Higher security at schools. As far as, from what I heard, there were security measures at the school. There were 2 sets of doors, and you had to be buzzed through the second set by, like, a secretary or something. And apparently he just broke through the window and unlocked the door from the other side. I mean, what was the secretary supposed to do? Be carrying a gun and shoot the guy on sight for attempting to break in? The other thing was like, well, what if teachers had guns? I personally wouldn't want my kid, if I had one, going to a school with, where the teachers are packing loaded firearms on them. My thought would be, if the school is so unsafe that teachers have to carry firearms and there has to be armed guards outside, do I really want my student going to said school? It's like, and even schools that have no, previous history of danger are now going to start carrying guns and armed guards. I don't see it happening. Like, it's extreme. And horrible events like this have happened and will continue happening. And we cannot rapidly change society. We cannot keep stripping away amendments and rights from citizens to protect ourselves from these bad things, no matter how horrible they are. Like 9/11. It was a horrible, tragic event. But that ended with us stripping away our Fourth Amendment, our right to privacy. Warrantless wiretapping and tracking and the ability to brand anybody as a terrorist and to lock them up without any question. It's horrible. We've given up our Fourth Amendment to protect yourselves, get away from 20 or 30 guys in a cave somewhere in the desert. That's what we did. Because you can't stop terrorists, as you can't stop lunatics. And we are just, as a society, we're becoming so afraid that we're just willing to do anything to make us feel safe again. And we're never going to have a utopian society. We need to stop giving in to our fears and allowing our lives as a whole to be completely torn apart and changed by isolated incidents. We can't allow them to take away our Second Amendment, our right to bear arms, which has been proven in a federal law, in a federal court, that is separate from the idea of being a militia. That we are able to carry guns as citizens. It's our right. We have the right to do so in the country. And unless, as a country as a whole, we decide against it, then it's not going to change. And security at schools on a grand measure, it's far too extreme, and it'll make a situation worse than it needs to be. Like, what happened was horrible, but we don't need to change society as we know it in order to make things not horrible. It's not going to work. Regardless how much security, there are government buildings and whatnot that have armed security that still get attacked. They still get bombed, they still get shot. Bad things still happen. Some things cannot be prevented. And it doesn't mean we need to change as a whole to stop that. That's the end of the video. This has been Kroger Nazi, and I'm out. Have a good day, and peace.